Kevin Feige recently stated that they know exactly when the mutants will show up in the MCU and how, and he's previously teased that they are definitely going to take a different approach when it comes to mutants and how they show up in the MCU in this universe. So let's talk about a big rumor, and a rumor that now I think has more evidence than ever before. So when it comes to the mutants, I think it's already pretty evident that they're not just going to be something that happens out of nowhere like in the Fox universe, because that doesn't really work. I mean, it works to a small degree, but when you look at Marvel Comics, as it's always been, we did learn that mutants and the mutant gene was something that came from way before and was something that was created, just like humanity itself, just like the Deviants and all this, and this was all due to the Celestials and more or less that whole ancient aliens theory being made relevant. So ever since they announced the Eternals, they very much focused on the aspect that this is going all the way to the beginning of the MCU and Earth as we know it, and we're going to touch upon the ancient alien stuff and all of these civilizations, the first humans and all that. And many people figured, well, this is exactly how they're going to handle many aspects of explaining the Inhumans, the Deviants, for example, and the mutants. Now, of course, at the time, mutants were not something that was a part of the Disney plan because they didn't own the mutants outright. But ever since then, they've acquired the property, they own the XMen, the mutants, and all the Fox catalog of characters, so they can. And recent rumors have once again popped up due to toy leaks and what's being teased and what insiders have said that's turned out to be true in regards to other properties, is that the Deviants will in fact be crucial to establishing the entire backstory of the race of these creatures, and that we will find out that the descendants of the Deviants are in fact something that ties very closely into why the X gene / the mutant gene exists and will start popping up during the course of the ending of Phase 4, then leading into Phase 5. Now this does make sense. Again, it's how they did it in the comic. It's literally the blueprint, and again, you just have to go back to everybody that's ever talked about rebooting the X-Men, from Victoria Alonso, who worked alongside Kevin Feige from his early days, and she was on set for the X-Men movies, to now working with the MCU. She said multiple times, we're doing it differently. This is going to be different. We have different ideas and a different approach to it. And if you look back at the Ultimates comics, for example, that was a completely different approach to mutants, and some people hated it at the time, but most people came around to it and were like, you know what, it's a good enough take. And if you really want to be different, then tie it into everything that's relevant in the MCU. You tie it into the Eternals, you tie it into the Deviants, you tie it into all of this other stuff that's happening, like Inhumans, for example, and all these superpower things, because it perfectly fits in and you don't need to over-explain it. And I've seen some people say it doesn't make sense because why didn't Fox do it then? Guys, Fox was afraid to use mutant names or even give them their proper suits for 15 years. The same year they said Wolverine will never wear his comic accurate suit because it can't work on film, Captain America was running around in World War II with a spangly costume and a shield. One company embraced the comics, the other company embraced realism.